What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Greetings, welcome. My name is Gene Rice, and I am your facilitator for this session. I'm going to talk to you. Um, I call this a work session, and this work session is based on the vision development series that we've been working on. All right. Um, Again, I like to invite you in, and I believe this session will be beneficial to all of us involved. And I'm just going to talk. And that's why I dubbed it as a work session and not necessarily as a full up presentation. We've looked at vision based on a basic understanding coming from Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. We take that verse and first look at it through the lens literally. Without vision, it's impossible to continue operating and functioning, being able to see. When you think about innovation, innovation is a product of vision. Creativity is a product of vision. Generating new ideas, new concepts, plans, strategies, actions are products of vision. Movement, progress, development, making things, providing services are products of vision. So, whenever we look at that verse now, it gives us different perspectives to consider. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no innovation, describe what that looks like. Where there is no creativity, let's think about what those atmospheres and those conditions look like. Where there is no plan, planning is a product of vision. Let's consider what those operations and those functions and activities look like. Where there is no play, in terms of when we're talking about sports, even in basketball, they run plays. What does a team look like without running a play? A play is a product of vision. Someone had to sit down, diagram out what that play looks like. Excuse me. When you're thinking about football, football is full of plays, all types of plays. If you're thinking offense, running plays, and then there are multiple variations of running plays. All these plays are a result of vision. It's a product of vision, being able to see. Now, imagine a team that has only running plays. That's the only vision they have. All right, and we do understand that there are some teams that are stronger in their run game versus a pass game, but to 100% focus on run plays and there is absolutely nothing else in the playbook, imagine the success or the effectiveness of that particular team. It's probably not going to be as effective. All right. And so they expand at least to include some running plays that provide options. All right. Again, where there is no vision, where there is no play, things don't progress or they don't move forward. So, what do you think about that so far? All right, just trying to provide examples of how we use vision. Sometimes we may not always consider its uses and actually how it's incorporated in everything we do, but vision is critical in our ability to get things done. It's critical in terms of understanding where we're going and what we're trying to achieve as well. Why did I bring that up? I brought that up because in Gene Rice Ministries, we offer a range of services. All right, we offer a range of services. And I just want to, just go over some of those. At least introduce. I don't want to necessarily go over them in detail right now, but I just want to introduce to you just a few of the services that we offer. So we focus on one segment of what we focus on. It involves planning, risk management, preparation, strategy, and different types of reports. All right. There's more in that area, but just to give you a brief synopsis or just a brief list, there you go, a brief list. Those are a few things that fit within that category. We also focus on performance. In this area, we're looking at the level of proficiency. We're looking at different competencies. We're also focusing on how consistent one is able to perform. We look at repeatability. We're able to get a result one time, but are we able to get that result over and over again? What processes are we using in order to generate a certain result? Now, we also have to consider that you have processes and techniques and different steps that are being used that generate a particular performance. But we also have to consider what are those environmental factors, the context in which something is being done. Because you can take those same processes, steps, and techniques, and you change the context and you put it in a different environment, you may not get the same performance. You may not achieve the same results. And so we also take in consideration environmental factors and the context as well when we start talking about performance. Another area we focus on are solutions. All right. A lot of people love to get to the solution. When a patient goes to the doctor or they go to the hospital, they are looking for someone who could help them get to their solution. They want to feel better. They want to be better. Whatever is not right, they want it fixed. They don't want a lot of hemming and hawing, a lot of theorizing or anything like that. Whenever you go to the hospital, it is very direct. You want solutions. You want the doctor and the professionals to properly understand what you are saying. You want them to have the proper tools and resources in place that if you're not able to describe it fully or clearly, you want them to be able to have the tools and resources to conduct certain tests, go through certain assessments so that they can uncover what is actually taking place. All right. And so whenever they're able to properly identify those things that are going on, now they can move to the next step of diagnosis. All right. And then they start diagnosing based upon what they found. From there, they go into prognosis. All right. What is the application in terms of treatment, medicine, or what is the regimen that is going to be followed as a result of diagnosing and now prognosing the particular situation that's going on? And then you go into implementation, the actual treatment. All right. So this is the solutions, and what I just described is a methodology, is a process that is generally followed. And I'm quite sure that there are different variations and depths of what just shared. But when we start talking about solutions, people want to get to their bottom line quickly, and they want accurate solutions. We focus on that. And so within the solutions realm, we focus on solving problems, diagnosing, and coming up with accurate uh, prognosis so that we can generate different results to bring about the type of change that's required or needed. All right. And then the last area that we look at is kind of focus on the collective, excuse me, the collective efforts of individuals' background and expertise. All right. We realize that an individual can be a source of information, can be a wealth of experience and various backgrounds in terms of identifying certain things, but we all reach at times limitations and constraints, and we learn to collaborate so that we can expand our ability and expand our capability in terms of bringing to bear what's required to get things done. Now, I like to put a pin right there. If I was to give just my own personal thoughts and opinions at this point, I think if you look at different organizations, based upon what they are challenged with today, there are some problem sets that are bigger than the inherent expertise that exists within that organization. The problems are complex. It has different elements that falls outside of one's exposure and awareness in terms of those different aspects of a problem set. And oftentimes what generally happens is we do not collaborate or work with others in a particular area so that we can properly, one, understand the different dynamics of the problem set, and then go through a process of actually creating a different change, a different set of conditions to where we can turn that problem into an opportunity. If you've listened to any wealthy person, from Facebook to Mark Zuckerberg to the Bill Gates, Microsoft, to the Steve Jobs, Apple, to Kathy Truitt, all right, Chick-fil-A. Any of these people that you've read, they've taken problems, they've taken something that didn't exist, and they built an opportunity around that problem. Oftentimes, our take is to look at a problem and say, man, we need to eliminate it. We need to slash it. We need for it to go away. Instead, maybe we should try to understand the problem, because problems are generally created based on conditions and certain things that happen within the environment. And just because we slash a problem doesn't mean that it's not going to pop up somewhere else. Doesn't mean it's not going to pop up immediately upon getting rid of it. So it's best that we go through the process of understanding the problem and then finding the opportunity, finding the value that we can extract from that problem set and turning it into something that is not only beneficial to others, but hey, it's also beneficial to us as well. So getting back to organizations, it's very important that we literally identify, take a real good look at those issues and concerns that exist within an organization, and then start the process of actually understanding it and actually leveraging it to generate value. All right, taking advantage of that opportunity that exists. All right, so now that was just a little bit in terms of just how we approach from within the ministry set, how we approach different value that we offer. Um, where do we want to go from here? So let's talk. I want to give you, I'll tell you what, I want to give you some framework that can be used. And we were talking at the top of the hour about vision, developing vision, the different uses of vision, how vision is not just something that we look at from where we are into the at some point in the future, but vision is also used in our everyday activities, functions, and operations. And so I want to give you a framework that we use to develop vision. All right. And that's what this work session is about, is developing vision. All right. The first thing that must be present in order to have vision, there must be some light source, some illuminating source, which means you can have vision all day long, but if you're operating within a dark space, you still cannot see where you are or your surroundings. And so it makes movement very challenging. It also kind of makes it dangerous because you're unaware if there are different gaps that exist within the ground. So is there a hole? Is it a cliff? God forbid. Is there some type of obstacle that is around you that if you run into it, you could possibly injure yourself? So whenever you can have perfect vision, but if you're operating without an illuminating source, it can be very hazardous. All right. So one of the elements we want to understand whenever we're developing vision is identifying the source of light. All right. What is providing illumination so that we could actually see not only where we are, but we could see our surroundings as well. All right. And then not only, so inherent in being able to see and being positionally where that light source is, it automatically creates what we call exposure. All right. Exposure. And so you can have a light source in one location, you could be positionally somewhere else. But in order for that vision to take place, there must be exposure to that light source. All right. From there, we go to what we call being able to start the process of understanding. All right. We can start identifying where we are, identifying what's around us, and then understanding what that means relationally. All right. And if we're trying to move from point A to point B, we're able to see, pathways. We're able to identify different obstacles that exist along the way. And from there, we could navigate. All right. Navigation means that you may have to go up, you may have to go down, you may have to go around some things. In some cases, you may have to create your own pathway to get to your destination. All right. And so navigation is more than just movement. Navigation takes into account all of the factors that exist within an environment. And it implies that there is going to be various changes, different elevations, different types of movements that you're going to have to take along the way. All right. Just think about how we've covered three parts, just very generally already. And just think about how, if we break those parts into its unique characteristics, just think about how we're developing vision by looking at that. Just looking at the light source, understanding the light source, what gives light, what provides illumination. All right, if we're go back to the organization scenario once again. I just had a thought. One key factor that is important is there may be some problems that exist that we don't even recognize. So one of the key things that needs to exist, which relates to an illuminating source, we need to be able to identify certain problems, because it's a problem if you cannot identify the problem. Think about that for a moment. It's a problem if you cannot identify what the problem is. So sometimes it requires an illuminating source. It requires maybe someone, maybe something, maybe exposure to something that can explain the characteristics, the structure, and the different experience and conditions that surround what you're going through, the quote unquote problem. All right. And so being exposed to these different sources, which hits the second part, a source and exposure to that source, now you can go through the process, which is step number 3, and start to generate understanding. All right. In organizations, if you're capable of one, at least achieving those 3 steps that we just mentioned, already you are expanding the type of vision that you have. All right. And what we find a lot of times is a lot of organizations, they're just continuing to do well what they can do well. But at some point, if certain problems aren't addressed, those problems may continue to grow. And think about a sickness that exists within someone's body. If that sickness or ailment or injury continues to go unaddressed, at some point, and oftentimes it's more rapid than delayed, is it can start to have effects on what you are able to do. So it's important that when we identify something that's present that's not quite working, is to go through a process of identifying what is this thing that exists. And if you do not have those, if those current abilities does not exist within, then it's good to identify a source that could possibly shine light onto what those things are to generate understanding. And again, using the patient that goes to the hospital, you know that something is wrong. You know something is not operating properly. And although the patient may not be able to articulate exactly what it is exactly, or be able to put a name to it, you can basically start to provide descriptions, and you can start pointing toward where that discomfort is. And then whenever you're able to go to the professionals, the doctor, the illuminating source, then they're able to take you through a process of helping you to identify what that problem area is. All right. It's very important that if we're experiencing something and it's not quite right, hey, let's start going to the quote unquote professional, or let's go to a source that could start the process of helping us to put proper descriptions to those things that we're experiencing, who could put the proper label and identification to those things that we are going through. All right, because you can't properly diagnose something until you first understand where the problem area is. All right, you don't want to just randomly diagnose something, because if the diagnosis is improper, guess what else? the prognosis is going to be improper. And then from there, the treatment is going to be improper. And then after that, guess what? That problem still exists. All right. How many of you have ever taken, I'm going to switch a whole different field right now. How many of you have ever taken a vehicle to a mechanic? And the mechanic said, hey, I think it might be your transmission. All right. And you come to find out, you know, you get your transmission fixed, and lo and behold, it wasn't the transmission. It was actually something else. All right. Now, you know, because they didn't properly identify what was wrong, they diagnosed it saying it was the transmission. The prognosis was to replace the transmission. And then the treatment was that you're supposed to be able to go and operate in your vehicle, you know, somewhat normal, and only to discover you still have the same problem. Now you've wasted money, time, and effort, and the same problem exists. So it's very important that we understand accurately what the problem is. And sometimes, you know, again, developing vision using these first 3 steps that I've shared with you, it allows us to get around the right sources so that we can see correctly. We're exposed to it, and then we start going through that process of understanding. I think I'm going to stop right there on those 3 points. I have 3 additional points after that, but I'll save those for another broadcast. But again, just highlighting the fact, 2 things. We're talking about vision development, but I also want to highlight the fact that within this particular services, within this particular platform, that's our goal. Our goal is to, we work with organizations, we work with individuals. We work with individuals from a personal standpoint, being able to understand where you are, what it is that you're trying to get to, all right? And then starting to think through that process of how you're going to, quote unquote, navigate, all right? Which means it's not going to be a straight shot. There's going to be all types of changes that you're going to have to account for. There are things in the environment that's going to create a need to be able to adjust yourself. You got to be agile, which means you got to be able to go up. All right. There are going to be some parts of the terrain where you're going to have to elevate. There are going to also be some places where you're going to have to go down. All right. You're going to have to be able to go in areas that are, quote unquote, not standard, but you're going to have to go underneath, which means you're going to have to go to a place where it's going to require a lot of work, a lot of effort. And it's sometimes to go down means it's behind the scene. It's not visible. All right. There's some work that has to be done behind the scenes. And then, you know, you may have to shift left or right as well. So our goal from a personal standpoint is that we help you to understand where you are, where you're trying to go, and that there's going to be some navigational requirement to get you from point A to point B. Now, what does that do for you, and what does it do for us? It allows us to create a plan, which is vision, remember. It allows us to create different strategies, which is vision, different plays. Remember the analogy that we use, that if you just have one type of play, you're basically limiting what you're capable of doing from an offensive perspective. But you also want to create different types of plays so that you know which play you need to use under certain conditions, so that you're able to always have the position of advantage. All right. That's a key part, is that you want to always create and maintain as best as you can a position of advantage. All right. And having different plays and being able to read the context properly will allow you to be able to pull out different plays at your disposal so that you can continue to make progress. All right, and that's what we do. We develop. We go through that whole process of expanding your vision, creating options in your vision. All right, it's more than just I want to get to whatever down the road. All right, we want to make sure that we implement concrete, as much as we can, concrete strategies, but there's also some subjective areas too that are involved, and we want to know how to integrate those things together so that we make sure that we get to our goals. From a personal standpoint, you can take that personally, and you could also use that from a professional standpoint as well. And finally, organizations, which is I've spent quite a bit of time in this particular broadcast, just highlighting organizations. If your organization, all right, in my particular area of interest, I am very interested in churches, very interested in churches, especially churches that exist in the South. All right, especially churches that exist in the South. Why am I particularly interested in churches in the South and have a certain passion for churches in the South? Because guess what? That's where a lot of my upbringing took place, was within churches in the South. All right, and I think it's important that we identify, opportunities to grow and to develop so that we're able to meet the challenges that exist in the 21st century. All right. So if you want more information, go to generice.com. There is a space on there for you to fill out the information. Fill out that information, and we'll get in contact with you, and we'll start the conversation in terms of tailoring services that will allow you to develop and create plans so that you will be able to reach your goals and objectives to meet the requirements and challenges of this particular day. All right. So again, thank you for taking this moment, and pray that your day is a blessed day, and we'll talk to you real soon.